Alrighty, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Weather Where You Are. I am First Alert Meteorologist Courteney Jacobazzi. We are going to talk about the storm threat that is on the way for our First Alert Weather Day next Wednesday, give you a little bit of an explainer of why we are watching for the chance for storms, and kind of do a deeper dive, give you a little bit of a lesson on our potential for maybe some strong to severe storms as well. It's not a sure bet right now. If we were to see strong to severe storms, it would mainly be a damaging wind gust threat, which we've seen a lot with all of our storm systems that have rolled in. We've had, down trees because of that. That would be something we'd be looking forward to potentially next week. Way too soon to talk specifics, but I want to at least give you kind of an idea of what we're looking at and give you kind of the reasoning behind what we saw in order to give you that First Alert Weather Day next Wednesday. So here's a look at what to expect going into next week. So we'll have a very large weather system building across the plains, and that's going to move into the southeast on Wednesday. Timing still needs some work. Right now, it does look like it's more so the first half of the day. Models have been pretty consistent on that, but that could very well change. So as this front moves closer to us, what's going to be happening out ahead of it is we will have wind coming in out of the south, and that's going to pull in warm and really moisture-rich air out ahead of this front. So it'll feel a little bit more muggy on Tuesday. We'll have more cloud cover on Tuesday, and that's all signs that that wind is pulling in that Gulf moisture into the southeast. And essentially, what that does to our forecast is provides fuel for that cold front to work with. You're going to have this warm and moisture-rich air. You'll have this colder, denser air behind that front. Essentially, colder air sinks because it's more dense. So as it runs into that warmer, more moisture-rich air, that cold air will sink underneath it and allow everything to rapidly lift, and that creates that thunderstorm activity out ahead of the front. So that's what we're looking for, and that's kind of the difference between this weather system and the couple that we had, one, of course, yesterday, and then one that will be on the way for the upcoming weekend, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we don't have any moisture returning back into the southeast, so the fronts don't have anything to work with. They don't have anything to lift up and create any kind of precipitation or any kind of thunderstorm activity. That will be a different story on Wednesday. We'll have a completely different setup, and one that will promote at least the chance for maybe some thunderstorm activity, and again, maybe a strong to severe storm. When it comes to severe weather, you need a couple of ingredients. You need heat, so some sort of fuel source. You need lift, and that comes from the cold front itself, and you need moisture. You put all those together, that usually gives you that chance for thunderstorms, and then to some extent, an isolated severe storm. And again, that's what's going to happen on Wednesday as that front moves in. Now, I want to talk about something that we don't really get to talk about on TV all that much because it would just take too long to explain. But what you're looking at right now are the upper levels of the atmosphere. You're looking at temperatures, and this is kind of the best way to explain it. I put the jet stream little arrows there to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. So as this cold air ushers in, this is kind of representative of wind in the upper levels of the atmosphere as well, because that jet stream is a tunnel of wind essentially in the upper levels of the atmosphere where jets fly, and that is kind of the dividing line between cooler and warmer air. So where you see the cooler air, that's indicative of where that kind of wind tunnel is, and the kind of position of the jet stream and of our winds in the mid to upper levels is important actually to what's happening at the surface and to our severe threats. So when we're analyzing storm threats and severe weather, this is something we look at. We look at whether something is negatively tilted or positively tilted. When you have a system that is negatively tilted, you get this big trough, which is essentially that dip you're looking at right there with the blue. When you see that facing the other direction, see that dashed line, how it's going from northeast to southwest? If it was facing the opposite direction, that's when you start to get a little more concerned. That's when you get a negatively tilted trough. That's usually indicative of a more violent system and essentially a greater threat for severe storms. So while this doesn't mean we are not going to have the potential for maybe an isolated severe storm, seeing that this is staying positively tilted as it's moving through our area, again, when you see that dashed line kind of guiding the direction of that trough going from northeast to southwest, we are looking at the potential for storms, of course, but that's not screaming severe weather outbreak for us, which is the good news. Now, I will say we also look at kind of smaller features in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, and it does look like we'll have some little waves of energy developing along this system, very dynamic system if you can't tell, and that will promote at least some extra lift in the atmosphere to give us that extra oomph for maybe an isolated severe storm. But this is good news. We're not seeing any kind of negatively tilted trough that is really usually indicative of like a sure bet for severe weather. It is more positively relatively tilted, so it's weakening as it's moving through the southeast. Still a strong front, but weakening, which will be good news for us on the severe weather front. Doesn't mean that we won't experience severe weather again. I want to make that clear, but not screaming severe weather outbreak for us. Now, again, this is very early in the forecast, so things could change, trends could change, the evolution of the system can change. It hasn't even developed yet, so we still have a lot of questions that need answers. But right now, this is kind of just a background knowledge of how we go about forecasting the future when it comes to storm systems like this. Let's take you into the timing of it. Again, this is going to change as well. We know that, you're 5-6 days out, things are going to change. But right now, it does look like by Wednesday morning, that front will more than likely be moving into Alabama, and then pushing into Georgia by late morning, potentially into the early afternoon. Now, if this does shift a little bit later, say this comes through downtown Atlanta between like 3, 4 o'clock, 2, 4 o'clock, that gives us the opportunity to warm up a lot more. Again, remember from the beginning, we have this warm and moisture-rich air getting pumped into the southeast. If you allow that to continue to pump in ahead of this front with the daytime heating, that gives you that extra fuel for storms. So the earlier this moves through, the better situation for us. Doesn't mean we don't have that wind shear, which is that change in wind direction and speed with height, but still, we are going to be watching the timing on this because that will be key to our severe weather threat, especially in terms of maybe an isolated tornado. Right now, it's mainly looking like a damaging wind gust threat for us, but we'll be keeping a very close eye on it. So around noon, front moving through, rain maybe out ahead of it, so that'll keep our temperatures a little cooler. We'll still be near 70, so still plenty warm. But notice, this is going to move off to the coast at 6 o'clock. So places along the coast and in central Georgia, they're going to have plenty of time to heat up. So I do think as of right now, with the way this front is looking and just the way that models are handling this front, right now it looks like 85 corridor in areas east, south, and east. So we're talking from the coast to Macon. They have a greater threat for severe storms right now, but again, can't rule out an isolated severe storm in the city of Atlanta. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center is still keeping an eye on us on Wednesday, and notice that it's kind of focusing now on that I-85 corridor in areas south because of the timing of that front with more heat, more fuel. It just looks like that is more of the kind of for sure undoubted area that is going to experience at least the chance for an isolated severe storm going into Wednesday because they simply are going to have longer to heat up and more fuel for that storm or that front to take advantage of. So that I-85 corridor areas south and east, that's kind of the bullseye right now, but we'll be keeping a really close eye on how everything progresses going into next week. That's kind of an explanation of exactly how we go about forecasting the potential for severe weather this far out. Of course, there's more that goes into it the closer you get and you get a little more detail, but those are kind of the trends that we're looking for right now and the patterns that we're looking for right now. So for Wednesday, right now we know we're going to have rain. We know we'll more than likely have a few storms. Severe storms are possible. Isolated severe storms are possible, but the potential threats, the individual threats, how many of us are going to kind of be in that threat for severe weather, or who has the best chance, that still needs some work, but it is possible, so we just want to let you know that. Today, though, beautiful weather. We did have a cold front move through yesterday, so we are going to be a little cooler. Yesterday, we managed to make it into the mid-70s. Today, we'll be in the mid to upper 60s to low 70s. Really pleasant day. I was outside not too long ago. It was super comfortable out there. Now, the weekend, we are going to have another front approach us, and as that front gets closer, a front is a change in pressure, and pressure differences create wind. So it will be breezy, it'll be sunny, it'll be mild. We're talking gusts 25 to 30. So if you do have anything to do outside, just make sure that you are accounting for that. If you're having like any kind of birthday party outside and you have paper plates and all the napkins and the plastic cups, all that kind of stuff, just know that that might get blown around a little bit tomorrow afternoon. If you're setting up any kind of tents for any kind of festivals, it's all just something to keep in mind. But overall, it'll be a really nice day with temperatures in the low 70s. And then there's the only aftermath of that front you're going to notice. It's not going to bring us storms, not going to bring us severe weather. We just don't have the moisture for it. The air's too dry. It'll bring us a cold start to Sunday. We'll wake up in the 30s and we'll be sunny and chilly for the afternoon. So we'll go from the 70s to the 50s going into the weekend this weekend. Here's a look at that First Alert 7-day forecast just so you can kind of plan ahead. And I'm going to take that little banner off there so you can see everything. Today, beautiful, sunny and 70. By the way, within just over an hour or so, hour and a half, the Braves on Gray, they will be on TV, on Peachtree TV. Go give it a watch. Great afternoon to maybe go grab some lunch and watch it. Take a nice little break from work. Maybe leave early. I'm not condoning a half day at work unless you're allowed to. Temperatures tomorrow morning in the 40s, 70s and sunshine tomorrow and breezy. And then we'll be colder on Sunday. Going into next week, we warm back near 70 by Tuesday. There's that warm and moisture-rich air returning to the forecast. You'll see clouds build on Tuesday. Our first alert weather day Wednesday, rain and storms likely. Timing still needs work, but it does look like it'll mainly be a first half of the day event for us. Severe storms are possible, but the extent of that we still have to work on. And then Thursday, we'll wake back up in the 30s with highs in the mid-50s as we round out the end of next week. And next week is the first week of March, guys. Can you believe it? February's over. February went so fast. January took 6 months. But that's just how it goes. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Weather Where You Are. I hope that gave you a little insight into our forecasting process. Just a little bit of a inside look at what we do as meteorologists as we try to prepare you for storms and maybe even severe weather as we look ahead to our First Alert Weather Day next Wednesday. Be sure to join us on Atlanta News First at noon. We will catch you there for a full look at your forecast as well. And I hope you make it a wonderful Friday.